This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I'm your host, Eva Fulton. In this show, we explore the incredible journeys of resilience, healing, and transformation. In each episode, we will sit down with individuals who have faced unimaginable struggles and turned their pain into power, heartbreak into hope, and their challenges into meaningful change and finding new purpose in life. Through candid conversations and inspiring stories, we will uncover how pain, whether emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual, can be the catalyst for profound growth and a deeper sense of purpose. So if you are looking for motivation, insight, and real stories of triumph over adversity, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey from pain to purpose. Let's give veterans a voice through military broadcast talk.
Hey, everybody. How are you today? Whoops, where did I go? There we go. Wrong button. Sorry. Technical difficulties. It's the user. So this has been a pretty interesting journey. I'm just checking in with you guys. I am still working on chapter 2 of my dissertation in public administration, and I'm getting really excited about the research that I have been reading, and also knowing at the same time that there is way more room for more research. So I'm in some very good feels about the progress of where I'm headed and excited about where this journey may take us all. So if you don't know, I am studying the unfilled needs of female combat veterans. I am a Gulf War veteran from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and was really, we were the first cohort of women who actually served and recognized as serving in combat zones and not as auxiliary or volunteers, compared to our prior sisters in service that have been accepted as veterans from all the wars really since America began. So interesting journey, lots of great research that I've been finding, and just wanted to check in with you guys because I do believe in being accountable to you, the audience, and making sure that I help share that, from pain to purpose is really a journey for all of us, male, female, and what all of our experiences are, and in case you've never watched the show before, I really kind of premise the show that there are 4 major pillars of pain points that we have in our lives: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And sometimes any of us can cross any of those. And when we start getting weak, if you think about our stability as a chair that we sit on with 4 legs of pain points, when we have one that starts, getting a little crooked in life, then we know that we have to work on some stabilization. And really, that's probably one of the things that has brought me to this point from my experiences, both pre, during, and after military service, and really trying to bring not just bringing a female voice to this stage, but being a voice for veterans in general, and I look out for lots of people and see what their journeys are doing. It's often interesting to see how did we each get to this point, and how we found purpose in life, or are we struggling in purpose sometimes, because that's always the thing as well. And when I'm looking for guests, sometimes they wonder, am I a fit for your show? And really, you would not believe the connections I have, and uh, and talking with them, and they realize, oh yeah, I do have a pain to purpose story. Of course you do. We all do. Because if you don't have a pain to purpose story, what bubble are you living in? Because I wonder, are you living life, for one? And then two, how are you managing to not experience challenges in life and figuring out how to overcome them? Because I bet you have had a pain to purpose story. You just didn't know how to identify it as such. And I tell you about my next guest today. I'm super, super excited. And Bill, you probably didn't know, but it was the fact that you were using poles in one of your pictures that captivated me. I was like, I gotta get to know this guy, because he's all into, using the hiking poles, and like minds, we tend to gather, right? So I wanted to just kind of start picking his brain and see where his journey has taken him. So Bill Jensen is our guest today. He's the CEO of the, why am I not saying it right? I got the Captive Audience. I will be sharing his website pretty soon, but he was in Special Forces, the Green Beret, and with experience and expertise in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Eastern and Western Europe, South Korea and North Africa. Way more years in service than I could ever even have thought of. He's been through a lot of different things. He has experience with international anti-kidnapping as an expert, combat medic, crisis management, hostage negotiator, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's not any kind of a joke by any means. He has way more experience. I was really thought this was very timely given the circumstances, the news that we saw last week. And I thought, wow, I need to have this guy on my show, because I'm sure there's some lessons learned for all of us there. So anyways.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Hey, Billy, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Thank you for coming on the From Pain to Purpose radio show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And you are not located very far from me. You're just on the other side of the bay.
Yep, over in Northern Virginia.
Okay. That's still just a nice little hop, skip, and a jump away. So, did you like my intro on, yes, he has poles. So I got you.
Yep, I have been using them a lot. They, as the back has been has seen far better days. It's those poles bring a lot of stability when you're out on the trail.
For sure, don't they? Not just going down, but going up the hill as well.
Yeah.
Do you do like I do? I kind of feel like the way I've described it to people, I've become like this. I hold them like, now they're spider legs. I hold them on top, because mine have like a little cap on the top of the pole. And so they act like extensions of my hands via my arms. But I walk downhill more like a spider than I do. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I tend to do that as well.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if that sounded like it was. Is there a technical term for that? Because I just call it my spider walk.
No, I haven't even given it any thought.
Okay.
I just do it.
Me being silly. Me being
Yeah.
silly. We do have some people watching. Hey everybody, we've got Tracer on. So if y'all don't know who Tracer is, she says hello here. She's one of our other hosts on the show. And you have one of your friends, I think, Marianne Davis is watching. You know
Hmm.
Marianne?
Yeah, that's my sister.
All right. Hello, Sister Marianne. So I think when you don't post on Facebook a lot, but I did see the polls and I saw a lot of what you're doing. I was like, he looks like he would be an interesting guy to interview, because I'm sure that through all of your experiences in the military. Oh, Soldier Girl Coffee is watching. Yes, welcome. Uh, that you probably have some kind of stories that you can share. I got a chance to listen to 3 podcasts that you were on. I think that was a James Bond series that
Yeah, being James
being James
Bond.
Bond,
Yeah.
right? And that was pretty interesting to hear some of those stories. Um, you know, where do you want to jump in?
Well, I guess I can give you a little background,
Yeah,
um, and kind of where how captive audience became, or how we got to this point. So I spent 26 years total in the Army. I started out as a medic in the reserve. Did uh, did 4 years in the reserve. My initial attempts at college were quite pathetic, so I went active duty and did another 4 there, and that was great until I worked in the hospital at Fort Bragg on female medicine, and that wasn't very thrilling for me. So I
you don't
recla-
say.
reclassified to cavalry scout. I did that for a few years and went through special forces selection, and was selected. And I was in the I made 2 attempts at special forces school. I ended up with a broken coccyx and my first attempt, and never let it heal. So I ended up going back to big Army for a little while, and then came back, and I was in the very first class after 9/11, after the towers fell.
Mm.
Going through special forces school as a weapons sergeant, and graduated. Went out to Fort Carson, Colorado, literally as the invasion of Iraq was about to happen, and went over and got to be part of that as a brand new Green Beret. And then over that time, uh, multiple tours in Iraq and multiple in Afghanistan as a weapons sergeant, and then an intelligence sergeant, and then as a contractor working for DoD. Uh, and in that, I amassed a lot of training and experience in personnel recovery. So in getting Americans out of bad places,
Mm.
if they've gone missing or kidnapped abroad, or being held hostage. And my 2016 and 2017 trips to Afghanistan, and I was working in that space, and I saw that the people who we were going to rescue and recover were most often missionaries, journalists, aid workers. There were people who were out trying to do good, but they went over there without any training or uh, any kind of backing, uh, and then got into trouble, and it became the U.S. government's issue. And the families weren't prepared. The their organizations weren't prepared. So I decided, along with my my partner, Chuck Friedman, that we would make this company, Captive Audience Prevention Training and Recovery Team, to provide training and crisis management support to those groups of people and others who were preparing to travel. And it has morphed into training church security teams, and working with them, and just a group of other related types of training. We've trained everyone, every from groups who are traveling into the wilderness, providing wilderness medicine training, to in the past couple weeks, we've done everything from executive protection related training, women's concealed carry training, wilderness first aid training. Yeah, it's just been a mix, but that's kind of how we're continuously operating, and that's what got us here, into this space. Yeah, we even got trained hostage negotiators to be able to provide support, which was not something that was part of the standard military training. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
I bet it has. As you started, talking about that journey, and I don't know if we didn't talk about this in our pre-show discussion, but it kind of reminded me about the whole purpose of why we had a contingent of people who went down to Grenada, and to rescue those people out there. I would have thought that we would have had some training that would have been put together between then and now, or is it that there just hasn't been enough training to prepare people for going in those situations who are not military?
There's a lot of training that that is available to some of those organizations, and then some of them they have training, but it's
Not the right kind of
it's
training.
not the right kind of training. They're not getting the anti-kidnapping and hostage survival training. They're getting this is how you survive in an austere environment, which is great.
Or
But
maybe a country affiliation training, but it's not the oh shit, how do I get out of here situation kind of training.
yes, it's not hey, how do I stay out of trouble and not come up on the radar, identify if somebody is targeting me, and do something about it to get away safely and not become a statistic.
It's interesting as you say that, so we were both in the reserves before we went active duty. My last 2-week reserve, summer training was at Fort Bragg at the Special Forces side of things, and so I was a paralegal. This was before I think this was in 1989. So I guess the military must have known that things were ramping up even in 1989. So I think that was my last 2 weeks that I did was at Fort Bragg. And we did country law studies on a whole plethora of countries, everything from what is the general customs there to how do companies buy things from each other, and what is the expectation? Is it bribe or is it not bribe? Is it when does it cross the lines? So that was one of those my rare insights and being able to work around the SF field of things. But I remember there are some different folks out there that even the NCOIC that we were dealing with, he had to go and talk to somebody, and I was 20 at the time. I was a little, young I was an E3, I think, at the time. Anyways, he's like, be careful, because some of the SF guys, you got to be careful with them. They're not all created the same, you know. And what he was talking about was this guy at the front door that I thought, seemed, he was quiet, but he was like, don't talk with him. He was recruited from the Atlanta Police Department as a sniper. So, anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, there's a big a lot of disinformation out there about who Green Berets are and what they their personalities and what they do. Um, it is amusing at times to have that um, that mythology around you. Um,
Yeah, but that was coming from an
so,
SF guy about another SF guy, and
yeah,
I was a reservist. I was very naive,
yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, I just thought, just thought I
yeah,
was talking to this guy."
yeah. It is kind of funny to see or to even hear us talk about each other. So
But I haven't ever forgotten that. I don't know why, but anyhow.
yeah.
Uh, so where did my old notes go? We had a pre-show talk this morning, quite interesting. And I know part of it you touched on, but I don't know that it was necessarily the why or the how. And really, what motivated you to get started with your company? What was, because you have had some of your own physical challenges. Um, do you want to talk about that and how that shaped why you started your company?
Um, well, yeah, the company itself was started before the major physical issues started, but it was my why, and I did have um, a colleague tell me, hey, you need to have a mission when you leave the military. You can't, um, you're not going to be able to turn it off. So you need to have a purpose that drives you, and that needs to be your thing. That needs to be the thing that you're passionate about, that gets you up every day, and that drives you through any of the hardships that you're dealing with. And for me, the thing that drove me towards special forces in the first place was their mission. Their mission was dealing with, the motto of special forces is "De oppresso libera," which is to free the oppressed, and that's the mission that I'm like, yeah, I'm all about that. Well, as I worked while I was still in uniform, and then even working as a contractor, that's always been my thing. Has always been to free the oppressed, and seeing the people who get themselves into trouble and need assistance and are being held captive or are in some kind of danger. Uh, I really, that drives me, is to be able to get out there and be support, if to help bring people home, to train them to not be a statistic, to provide training to the community, building resilient organizations like church security teams and others that we've worked with, and even the women's self-defense and women's um, concealed carry courses that we run. Again, that's something that I believe in, but it drives me and gives me a sense of purpose. So I uh, just over 2 years ago, well, it was about 3 years ago, I had a hypertensive crisis. My blood pressure was ridiculously high. We couldn't figure out what it was. Um, Finally figured out after several months that I had uh, a large 5.3 centimeter aneurysm on my ascending aorta and a
Mm,
calcified heart valve, and my heart was not doing very well, and I was a ticking time bomb with that aneurysm.
wow.
Uh, So I went in and I had open heart surgery, had that all corrected. Now part cow, as my ascending aorta is cow, and my heart valve is also. So um, I had to pull through that, but it was that purpose of I set out to do something. Um, I'm not going to let this be more than a hiccup. Um, and while I was going through the recovery for that, my blood pressure was great. They had that controlled. The heart surgery repaired all of that, but they
Yeah.
couldn't get my pulse to come down, and they tried everything, and they thought that I might be having a stroke. So sent me to the emergency room to figure out what was going on, and they found that I had a walnut size tumor at the front of my brain on the pituitary gland that was hijacking uh, the pituitary functions.
Wow.
So and then that all started to make sense, because I couldn't figure out for years why I would get emotional and cry for no reason, and I'm like, this is just kind of ridiculous, and that answered a lot of questions. So I had a year ago had that removed, and have been recovering from that. So the past 3 years has been quite the rolling from the COVID era into the heart surgery and into the brain surgery. But again, it's been that purpose of, okay, this is what I wake up to do, and this is the mission, and it can be frustrating too. Anyone who sets out to start a business, particularly something that's unorthodox, um, you better have a lot of resilience, because um, it's not going to be easy. You have to really believe in what you're doing in order to uh, to get through all the hiccups of starting a business and running a business and doing everything that comes with that. So um,
I can only imagine what you've gone through. I mean, I've gone through other physical sides, and but it does it it takes a lot of also, I think, patience with yourself, grace. You have to learn how to give yourself some grace. Because I know that you and we didn't get a chance to talk until this morning, really, because you were on a 9-day training gig with, I mean, it's your company, but you had a class for for the last 9 days. You have been engaged, and part of that is just finding work life balance as well. So how do you manage your work life balance?
I really haven't
You're
done a
working
great.
hard, so do you
Yeah,
play hard?
I can honestly say I have not done a very good job of the work life balance, because um, sometimes uh, it just goes so fast, and you're you're having to just you're full speed ahead until all of a sudden it's done, and then when it's done, then you're recovering and preparing for the next thing.
Right,
So and that's the thing, it is, if it wasn't for that sense of purpose, the sense of mission, um, definitely uh, would not be working, this at this level.
right. But then you also appreciate when classes get canceled because that helps you inadvertently manage that work-life balance too. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like you said, you're on the go go go. You're full steam ahead. But as an entrepreneur, you've got to be ready if a client says, hey, I need X training for so many people, and when
Hmm.
you've got to be able to schedule it because that's your income.
Yes. Yeah. And we we were supposed to be teaching in Maryland, wear and carry all weekend. I was quite relieved that we had to bump it to a later date. Um, it is a challenging. That's a 16-hour course, and it's on the edge of the 9 days. That would have definitely been an endurance event.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can only imagine. I'm pretty impressed with the the directions you've been taking so far, and being able to overcome. I talked about it on some of my other earlier shows. It's like you learn that song growing up about I'm going on a bear hunt. I don't know if you remember that song.
Oh
But you're going
yeah.
on a bear hunt. You got to go over it, got around it. But that's how we've learned how to live life and adjust as from the military too, right? That was just a precursor song, but I understood it when I went through the military. We just got better at learning how to navigate those things, those challenges in life, which I think this is a good point to kind of pivot for both people who have served and maybe even for those people who have not served. And I'm going to get into the threat assessment of what's happening and seems to be happening on a little bit more prevalent level is, let's say we're at an event. We could be shopping at the mall. We could be, attending church. And I know that I've seen at church for years, both in some of the mega churches and even the Catholic Church, that the deacons they're all caring. They have their security system set up because I can see their earpieces, and they are communicating with each other. But in some of these instances, whether you're in a small church or at a very public event, what are some of the things that we can or should do?
It all starts with your preparation before you even go. Really, it's first and foremost, and it's the tools that you're carrying with you. Your biggest weapon is your mind.
Hmm.
So it's getting some training and some understanding of security awareness. So I always tell everyone that comes through any of our courses, the first thing that I would recommend doing is taking not only a basic first aid class or basic CPR class is not enough. At a
Right.
minimum, everyone needs to have first aid CPR training and a stop the bleed course. But I recommend investing in the 16-hour wilderness first aid course, because that gives you such a broad depth of things that could go wrong. Everything from you're on a weekend trip and you're in an austere environment. Someone has and you're out in Colorado or whatever, and now someone has altitude sickness. That's not something we encounter every day. Um, or something catastrophic happens. There's a lightning strike, uh, or now you're dealing with a bullet wound or something bigger. Having that good level, 16 hours is really not that great of an investment when it comes to your life or the lives of your loved ones.
Right.
Spending that kind of time. So I always say it should start with that first aid and CPR and getting those fundamentals down and having that good knowledge. But if all you can do is get that basic first aid, stop the bleeds are only a couple hour courses. They're generally free to the public, but um, get some stop the bleed training at that minimum, so you understand how to use a tourniquet, how to pack a wound, how to uh, deal with a someone that has a penetrating injury to the chest. Those are going to be those fundamentals that are going to be most helpful, and you never know when you're going to need them. Second thing is getting some kind of self-defense training. So at least once a year, go to a self-defense class of some kind, and learn, the things that we teach of, you win 100% of the fights that you're not in. So avoid, recognize your self-defense should be recognizing that there is danger that's about to happen and trusting your gut. I've never been in any kind of situation that I didn't feel coming first. So, trusting that and being prepared to go the other way, or just saying, I'm not going to go. And then if you can't avoid the conflict, try to escape it, and don't stay there. And the last thing that you might have to do is defend yourself. So, whether that,
because I think when you and I were talking earlier, we talked about those F's, the fight, flight, freeze. I think we covered fear. No. Fight,
faint,
fight or flight, freeze, and faint, and fawn.
And then hyper arousal, which is the last one. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, you really need to challenge your sympathetic nervous system and do hard things as well. And so you get that resilience training, and also recognize how your sympathetic nervous system works, because your amygdala really is what takes charge when you're under stress and under pressure, and your prefrontal cortex gets disengaged. So unless you've trained to stay in that prefrontal cortex, once you're triggered and once you're in danger, you have to be able to override it. We call it the amygdala hijack.
And what did you call it? The hyper what? I'm trying to type it into our chat. The
hyper arousal. There are people who get addicted to the adrenaline, and the adrenaline rush, and they seek the danger, and they get a rush out of it. So it happens a lot with folks who have been exposed to a lot of stress, and where they're constantly in that their amygdala is constantly in charge. Their pituitary gland is hyper dumping adrenaline and norepinephrine and cortisol and all those things that become addictive to a person. So you see it in military veterans. You see it in law enforcement. You see it in EMS. You see it in people who are constantly in in those environments. That becomes an addiction for some. And also you see it in people that are perpetrators. They're often wired to just enjoy it, and that's where that's coming from. But it's still in that reaction to stress.
Wow. It coming from two different angles, but still with similar results. I mean, is that fair to say in some ways that?
Yeah, you see people who, with the hyper arousal comes hyper performance. In a lot of cases, people who've they're addicted to it, and that becomes their homeostasis, and they seem to thrive in that element. But that's still part of the sympathetic nervous system.
But in some ways, it gets also back to changing for purpose, right? I mean, you've got to retrain the brain to from that pain, because it's really a pain thing, and retrain the brain to find the purpose in like what you're doing with your company, and trying to help prevent people from getting harmed, or
yes,
whatever. You switched it around so that you're saving a life still, rather than being active in the performance of what you did in the military.
Yes, it's learning to manage that and then turning it around and using that ability for good.
Wow, phenomenal, phenomenal. I'm so glad that I've connected with you on and being able to come on, because I think that that's huge. I mean, I know at work we have, we have response training, um, you know, because it's any of the federal buildings, they give us training where to go, where do you hide, and I'm so far back they'd have to get way far to get where I'm at. I'm on a multi-story building and back in the corner. But I've had plenty of coworkers that say, man, Eva, if anything ever happens, I'm coming to your cubicle, because I have a whole variety of things and I have a go bag prepared that if I need to grab stuff, I can, even if it's a fire, I have a go bag I can grab to take out and I'm going to be okay. Because I guess the worst case scenario is a Twin Towers kind of thing happening, and being able to get out of the building because the first thing we're all going to be is we're going to be stressed and hungry and thirsty at some point anyways. And, trying to, it was that we had some training that also made sure have shoes that you can walk in, because it's, if you're just in heels at work, or even the guys have nice dress shoes, put on some tennis shoes. I know that sounds funny and where you're going to have time, but you can't run down the stairs and out the door far enough and fast enough if you're not in comfortable shoes.
That's true. Yeah, we wrote a book called Survival Ready, and
Yep.
that book has a lot of just great information on how to survive uh, all kinds of different situations. It started out as a self-published book, which was 365 Days of Survival, and it was one safety, survival, or security tip a day for a whole year. And then when Macmillan picked us up, they were so enamored with it that we beefed it up even more. It became Survival Ready. That we called it our tactical devotional. So you could literally read one tip a day, and in a year you would have just all the tips and tricks that just give you a lot of extra knowledge in how to deal with things.
So this book is on Amazon. I think you said it's also on Barnes and Noble as well.
Yes, I've seen it at Barnes and Noble, a lot of other bookstores as well. So great. I highly recommend it. But yeah, it's all about getting that knowledge and then putting the training to the test. No, another thing is really training yourself out of that amygdala hijack. So I often tell people, take an open water scuba class. If you want to be,
I love diving.
yeah, if you want to be out of your comfort zone, there is nothing like having to take your mask off 30 feet underwater and then put it back on and clear all the water out of it, and then take the air out of your mouth and throw it to the side and retrieve it and put it back in and clear it. It's really uncomfortable when you're 30 feet underwater doing all those safety procedures and keeping a level head. But those are the types of things that you want to do to train yourself not to be overcome by the amygdala hijack.
So you want to hear a funny thing? When I think I told you I learned how to do scuba diving, and I went on this trip with an organization called Deep Sea Valkyries down in the Bahamas. It was beautiful down there. It's my first dive trip, but I had a problem. Obviously, you can see I have long hair, but I kept having water leak in my mask. I was prepared. So you remember I grew up with the era of watching G.I. Jane. I was prepared to go full G.I. Jane on the boat. I wanted to learn how to dive so bad. and be successful that I was ready to shave my hair off to dive. Um, True story. I was ready. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The people on the boat they would agree. Cause I was so frustrated that I kept getting water in my face, in my mask, and it just was drowning me from, you know, inside out. It was so annoying. So, anyways, I also posted your other two books, the official John Wayne Handybook on bushcraft and the official John Wayne Handybook on emergency preparedness.
Yes, those books, Macmillan also uh, uh, had us write those two. So they commissioned us. We wrote those two, just full of a lot of amazing information on how to survive in the woods, and the tips and tricks on survival. And not just that, but then you take the emergency preparedness book that adds a lot of great information too, especially as we're talking about the types of situations that that we may find ourselves in now. Everything from natural disasters like Helene and Milton
Yeah.
last year, to uh, civil unrest and things, things like that.
Oh yeah, I could, Dad and I both have, our life straws that we carry with us, and I mean, I've got several. So life straws, if nothing else, start with the life straw. It's my recommendation because you can find remnants of a lot of things to survive, but if you don't have water, you're not going very far.
Yes, yeah, you have to plan for that, and plan for um, you know that long term. What happens when this goes more than a few days, and
Yeah,
then you're looking at weeks or even months.
I went hiking several weeks ago, because I was working on my Maryland, completion on the Appalachian Trail. And I did great hiking that day. And I noticed that my cell phone was starting to not let me upload pictures, and I didn't turn the Wi-Fi off. I had put it on, I had put on the airplane mode, but for some reason it was still draining. Even though I had that airplane mode, it was still trying to look for Wi-Fi. And by the time and guess what else I forgot? My battery. I didn't bring my backup battery with me. And so I had to make sure I turned everything off. And the next morning, I had my watch had died very early on my hike, so that was useless for me. I got the Apple Dive watch, and so that was useless. Um, so I woke up the next morning ready to, call an Uber to go back to where my truck was at, the trailhead. And guess what? My phone was in the red, and my Uber app had not updated. And I was like contemplating, do I put this out on the road to try and hitch a ride back to my truck? Fortunately, that's where, because I don't have one of those gizmo phones to, that I can use as a radio, whatever that is. A Garmin, right? It's a Garmin phone. I haven't
Hmm.
bought one of those yet.
The Garmin InReach. I carry a spot beacon. Spot beacon will connect via satellite, and I have pre-programmed messages that I can send to people in my contact lists. But
Oh,
then,
see, I need to get one of those. Yeah, so you and I got to talk after the show, or send me a link on what it is I
yeah,
need to get. But I was like, I was almost panicking. So I was able to send a text message to my son. He's in Texas. He doesn't get up early, so he was out. Dad doesn't know how to order Uber, so Dad was out. And I tried calling my friend in Florida, and he was out in the boonies on a golf course, and and he didn't have any way of being able to order me a new, because I dropped a pin where I was at. It wouldn't have been hard once they could get, in the app to order it. But by the grace of God, I was able to get I had to, in order to get the Uber app to update, I had to delete a bunch of saved videos and files off of my phone so that I had barely had enough battery to be able to get the Uber ordered and made it back. But I was going in full stress mode, trying to think through, all right, what do I do? What do I do? What's the, and I know it sounds like a very simple situation, because I didn't pre-plan and think. All these other hikes, I've carried the battery. If I'd had the battery, I wouldn't have had all these other problems. But it was all of the other things that kind of added up as my own little worst case scenario. And, I just kind of thought through methodically, fix this, fix this, fix this, for it to all work out.
Yeah. We in our training, we teach everyone, it's called the acronym PACE. So you want to have a PACE plan for your communications. So your primary method of communication is generally your cell phone.
Yeah.
Your alternate, for us, that's that spot beacon contingency. We recommend, especially if you're going to be in the backcountry, getting your basic ham radio license, the technician license, which is really not overly complicated. But, and that emergency is having some kind of, we're talking smoke signals and panels and
Oh yeah.
signal mirrors. But
I know my phone, when I'm up there on the AT, it'll ask me, hey, we're switching to satellite if I ever have a problem, so I know that part is there to actually make it, I've got that connection, but I was down in the valley, so that was not going to work. So, let's see. I finally got the email for your company. So if you want to go ahead and talk about how to reach you on your company,
yes,
your Facebook.
Yeah, so our Facebook, that's usually where we advertise our classes. About a week and a half from now, we're teaching a hybrid wilderness first aid class with survival med. So if you sign up, then you get 8 hours of coursework from survival med that you do ahead of time online, and then 8 hours with us in the woods. We go through in detail a lot of things to be aware of in the outdoors, and a lot of great hands-on training with that. We're running a urban rifle and pistol course. It'll be out in West Virginia here in a few weeks, and that those are up on our page right now. But we can also be reached, if you're looking at our page, U.S. Concealed Carry Association, captive audience. If you look on that site, usually a lot of our courses are there, but we do provide private training, and you can reach out to us on our Facebook page or through the website, and we can get back to you about any kind of private training your organization might want. So our website is captiveaudienceptrt.com, and then our Facebook is Captive Audience PTRT as well. So you usually see a lot of our adventures on our Captive Audience Facebook. So
sounds so interesting. I can only imagine going to the classes. They sound pretty neat, right up my alley, believe it or not. And I look back to a lot of the stuff that I learned in the Army, and believe it or not, I never actually went on a road march. when I was active duty because I had the car wreck and I didn't, I had injuries for the longest. When I finished basic training, I had 2 pulled hip muscles, and so one on both sides. I had pulled hip muscles that kept me from doing a road march there. Something else happened when I AIT, didn't get to do one to finish the class there, so they waived that. Was supposed to go to NTC after Desert Storm, but I had the car wreck on my birthday, so I missed going to NTC and, doing all of that experience. I mean, I did the runs and everything, but I was prevented from, going on all of those hikes. Now I enjoy hike. I can't get enough woods.
Yeah, well, that's one thing the Army didn't ruin for you. So that's a
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't ever forced. So I took control and I enjoy getting out there on my own and just I get my green therapy, man, it's just there's nothing like it. So man, I'm all in. If you want as a, I don't know, just a woman experience that talking about it to any of your classes, I mean, I'd be happy to, let them know. I think I've got a few hundred miles under my belt as a hiker that, I'd be happy to offer, you know, just talking to them about
Oh,
experiences and getting out there,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I think we need to talk about how do I even take the self-defense stuff, because my doctors have told me to be careful and not break any bones. So I would be interested, how do you do that? How do you, maybe I'm sowing a seed, self-defense for somebody who's disabled.
We tailor our training to everyone, to whoever the client is.
Yeah,
And that's the thing. You can't choose the day or the time that something's going to happen,
right.
whether you've got a disability or not. You still need to be able to at least defend yourself to the point where you can get away. And so those are things that we work with clients on a regular basis.
Well, we are about 3 minutes. So we really only have 2 because I have 1 minute for the closing video. What do you? What's one thing that I should have asked that I didn't ask that you want to cover?
Well, we did cover quite a bit. The biggest thing that I would say is really seek out the hard things. Seek training that's going to train you to overcome your sympathetic nervous system. Know yourself. Know how you react under stress, and the other thing is really have a mission, have a purpose, have something that drives you and makes you get up every day. I passed when I was in Special Forces selection, and I had really bad tendonitis on a really the final exercise there. I passed a old grizzled master sergeant who told me to stop feeling sorry for myself. And when I start to kind of fall back by the wayside and let everything kind of get the best of me, it comes down to that old grizzled master sergeant that told me to stop feeling sorry for myself. He lives in my head. So that would be the thing I would tell everyone is know yourself and don't let feeling sorry for yourself stop you from achieving.
Powerful words. Thank you so much, Billy. Well, coming up on my show next week, it is Dr. Katie Baillo. She's a good friend of mine from North Texas. She graduated. Woo-hoo! She's an academic, Dr. Katie Baillo, representing North Texas. And I'm super stoked that she's coming up. I don't have a guest for October 4th. So if you want to come on, let me know. I'll be remote in West Virginia with Rally for Vets, and that is going to be super fun. Brian Sims on October 18th, and October 25th, I'm open. So thank you so much, Billy, for joining me. And you've got a wonderful From Pain to Purpose story. And thank you so much. You're a blessing. And, look forward to meeting you sometime.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you so much.
Yep. Y'all have a great day, everybody. Be blessed.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.